In 1935, a Royal Air Force officer, Sir Victor Goddard, took off for a routine flight over Scotland. It was supposed to be just another training mission. Instead, it became one of the most documented and unexplained time anomalies in modern military history. What Goddard saw that day wasn't possible. An airfield, abandoned for years, suddenly alive again, operational, clean, new planes, mechanics in uniforms that did not exist yet. And then it was gone. And the strangest part, 4 years later, everything he saw became real. This isn't a story told in whispers or in conspiracy theorist groups. It's in his flight logs, his memoirs, confirmed by military timelines. You are about to hear a true story the world still cannot explain. This is the case of Sir Victor Goddard's flight into the future. The skies were clear when Goddard took off, but over Drem, that changed. The clouds thickened. A sudden, violent storm appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. His aircraft bucked in the wind. Rain hammered the fuselage. He descended lower to find visual reference. That's when he saw the airfield, or what should have been the airfield. Except it didn't look abandoned anymore. Where there should have been cracked runways and overgrown hangars, there were clean, smooth surfaces, yellow painted planes, mechanics in blue coveralls. The planes, Goddard didn't recognize them. They didn't exist in 1935, but they would 4 years later. He blinked, circled again, but the airfield remained strange, vivid, and real. He didn't land, he couldn't. The moment passed and the storm returned. He barely made it through the winds. When he finally reached home base, he didn't speak a word of what he saw. Not until later, when everything he saw came true. And then people listened. Because this wasn't a story from a dreamer. This was from a decorated officer, a man trained to observe, report, and never exaggerate. And what he saw over Drem defied time itself. For years, Goddard kept the experience to himself. The military had written it off. No investigation, no follow-up, just silence. But deep down, something gnawed at him. Had he suffered a hallucination, a brief psychotic break, or had he somehow seen the future? Then, nearly 4 years later, it happened. The Drem Airfield was upgraded, new paint, new uniforms. A fleet of planes moved in, yellow, just like he had seen. The mechanics now wearing blue overalls. And the aircraft, the exact same type he had glimpsed during that impossible flight. Everything he saw in that dreamlike moment had become real. There was no denying it now. Somehow, in the eye of the storm, Goddard had slipped into a pocket of time yet to come. But instead of vindication, he received only silence. The RAF never acknowledged the coincidence. For Victor Goddard, the mystery remained unanswered, but not unnoticed. What he saw wasn't just imagination, it was prophecy. And it would follow him for the rest of his life. What exactly did Victor Goddard experience that day in the sky? Some scientists have argued it was nothing more than a hallucination brought on by hypoxia, or the intense pressure of flying through a storm. But if it was an hallucination, how did it match the airfield's transformation years later, down to the colors, uniforms, and aircraft types? Others have pointed to a psychological phenomenon, precognitive dreams or visions, the mind slipping into a future event by unknown means. That explanation might satisfy some, until you remember he was awake, fully conscious, flying a plane, making real-time decisions. And then there's the third theory, a time slip, a moment where reality folds in on itself, where one time bleeds into another, and a person just for an instant steps outside the present time. That sounds impossible, ridiculous even, but this wasn't the first case of that. Across history, there have been dozens, maybe hundreds of similar claims. People who swore they saw things from decades ahead, or slipped briefly into a different century. The stories of such events are scattered, fragmented, but persistent. And in every single case, like Goddard, there's no real explanation. Just a moment of impossible clarity and the haunting question that follows. What if time itself is not as fixed as we think it is? Victor Goddard did not rush to tell the world about what he had saw. In fact, for years he said nothing, not to the press, not even to most of his colleagues. And yet, the memory never faded. Goddard went on to become an air marshal in the Royal Air Force, a man trusted with great responsibility during Britain's darkest hour. He was a war hero, decorated, dignified, a man of logic, discipline, and honor. So when he finally spoke about what had happened that day, people listened. In the 1960s, decades after the war, Goddard gave lectures on strange phenomena. He wrote about this time slip in his essays and memoirs. And he never wavered, never recanted, not even once. To the end of his life, he held firm. What he saw over Drem that day was real. And no, he wasn't trying to sell books. He wasn't seeking fame. He just believed the world needed to know that time might not be as steady as we once thought. There's a reason this story won't die, because Victor Goddard wasn't just anyone. He was a decorated war leader, an aviation pioneer, and the last man you'd expect to believe in time slips. But he didn't just believe in it, he lived it. And if it happened to him, who's to say it couldn't happen again? Somewhere above us in the clouds. Waiting. And one day, it just might. Victor Goddard passed away in 1987, but his story didn't. It's whispered in military circles, studied by paranormal researchers, and debated by skeptics to this day. Why? Because unlike most accounts of strange phenomena, this one came from a man of rank, a leader, a decorated pilot. He had nothing to gain, nothing to prove, and he told his story with the calm certainty of a man reporting the weather. Others have followed. Reports from travelers who claim they stepped out of time, walked into the past, or saw the future flicker before them. The stories are eerily similar, and the implications are staggering. If time can ripple, bend, fold in on itself, what else is possible? Was Goddard a prophet, a victim of some natural, unexplained wrinkle in space-time? Or was he just the first to talk about it out loud? He never claimed to understand it, only to have lived through it. And for many, that's enough to believe. Because if someone like Victor Goddard, rational, experienced, and tested by war, could admit that time might not be what it seems, then maybe, just maybe, it's not. And one day, somewhere in the clouds, it might happen again. Not with warning, not with meaning, just a crack in the fabric of time. And a single soul slipping through. Into the future or the past. And returning with a story that no one will believe. If you enjoyed this story, please stay tuned for more true and unexplained phenomenon. I'll see you in the next one.